Today on Stories Round the Table, we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with a man whose life has been deeply intertwined with the very fabric of American music. For half a century, he has been a vital presence in the world of song and story. Our guest began his journey in the realm of music journalism, writing for Country Music magazine in the 1970s. A proud Texan who found his way to Nashville, he has consistently been at the forefront of cool and significant musical movements. His path has led him from the page to the dynamic world of artist management, where he has guided the careers of legendary figures such as Townes Van Zandt, Steve Earle, the unforgettable David Olney, the spirited Cactus Brothers, the internationally celebrated Casey Chambers, and the groundbreaking dulcimer player David Schnofer, a musician he believes reinvented the instrument much as Earl Scruggs did for banjo. He has shared camaraderie and creative energy with iconic songwriters like Guy Clark and Nancy Griffith. His influence extends into the intricacies of licensing, the careful preservation of musical history through reissues, the challenges and rewards of international record exports, and the vital role of education as an instructor at Middle Tennessee State University. Remarkably, for all his accomplishments, the weight of his extraordinary family heritage, a lineage that forms the bedrock of American music folklore, often remained a quiet undercurrent. Our guest today is the grandson, son, nephew, and father within the first family of American music preservation. It was a wonderful surprise to learn that John Lomax III, in his rich Texas drawl, recently stepped into a new role, performer. At the age of 77, he made his live performance debut in an intimate house concert near Nashville, sharing the songs and the stories of the Lomax family. With characteristic humility, he stated, "Can't sing for beans, but it's not about the singer. It's about the songs and the heritage of our shared culture." This conviction fueled an 85-minute performance featuring 19 songs and numerous captivating stories for an audience that included 17 strangers. Now, the Lomax on Lomax show is gaining traction, with an upcoming engagement at the prestigious Crystal Bridges Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas, opening for Michael Martin Murphey, and 2 Houston dates already confirmed. John III is dedicated to learning more of the timeless songs documented by his ancestors and further honing the fascinating tales of his family, who journeyed from Mississippi to Texas by covered wagon in 1869, settling near the historic Chisholm Trail. It seems the proximity to the cowboys and an astute ear were all the original John Lomax needed to embark on a legacy that continues to enrich our musical landscape. Please welcome to Stories Round the Table, a true keeper of the flame, John Lomax III. Today on Stories Round the Table, we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with a man whose life has been deeply intertwined with the very fabric of American music. For half a century, he has been a vital presence in the world of song and story. Our guest began his journey in the realm of music journalism, writing for Country Music magazine in the 1970s. A proud Texan who found his way to Nashville, he has consistently been at the forefront of cool and significant musical movements. His path has led him from the page to the dynamic world of artist management, where he has guided the careers of legendary figures such as Townes Van Zandt, Steve Earle, the unforgettable David Olney, the spirited Cactus Brothers, the internationally celebrated Casey Chambers, and the groundbreaking dulcimer player David Schnofer, a musician he believes reinvented the instrument much as Earl Scruggs did for banjo. He has shared camaraderie and creative energy with iconic songwriters like Guy Clark and Nancy Griffith. His influence extends into the intricacies of licensing, the careful preservation of musical history through reissues, the challenges and rewards of international record exports, and the vital role of education as an instructor at Middle Tennessee State University. Remarkably, for all his accomplishments, the weight of his extraordinary family heritage, a lineage that forms the bedrock of American music folklore, often remained a quiet undercurrent. Our guest today is the grandson, son, nephew, and father within the first family of American music preservation. It was a wonderful surprise to learn that John Lomax III, in his rich Texas drawl, recently stepped into a new role, performer. At the age of 77, he made his live performance debut in an intimate house concert near Nashville, sharing the songs and the stories of the Lomax family. With characteristic humility, he stated, "Can't sing for beans, but it's not about the singer. It's about the songs and the heritage of our shared culture." This conviction fueled an 85-minute performance featuring 19 songs and numerous captivating stories for an audience that included 17 strangers. Now, the Lomax on Lomax show is gaining traction, with an upcoming engagement at the prestigious Crystal Bridges Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas, opening for Michael Martin Murphey, and 2 Houston dates already confirmed. John III is dedicated to learning more of the timeless songs documented by his ancestors and further honing the fascinating tales of his family, who journeyed from Mississippi to Texas by covered wagon in 1869, settling near the historic Chisholm Trail. It seems the proximity to the cowboys and an astute ear were all the original John Lomax needed to embark on a legacy that continues to enrich our musical landscape. Please welcome to Stories Round the Table, a true keeper of the flame, John Lomax III.
Hi, John.
Hey, Johnny, how you doing?
Man, long time, my friend. I'm doing very well. I hope you are too.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. You still out way out west?
Well, you know I'll never leave this ranch, but I've been traveling still quite a bit, still playing music.
Good.
Yeah, now Olivia's doing it full time as well, and so yeah, everything is good. But we're sure excited to talk to you today. And usually, when you and I've talked, it's been mostly just about business. So this time, we're excited to get to ask you some questions and hear your story.
I got the answers, I hope.
Well, John, I truly want to thank you for coming on to Stories Around the Table with Hudson and Joni. Truly appreciate your time. We know you're a very, very, very busy man. So we truly thank you for that.
Well, you're best welcome. I sure appreciate the interest.
Oh, absolutely. I think, first off, it would be fun. I've been reading a little bit, and I've known you for a long time, so I know some of the things about you, but basically you got interested in journalism from your family at a very young age, didn't you?
Well, yeah, my dad actually kind of got me started. He got me a couple of line note projects back in the 60s, I did. And then when I was in college, I started writing for the university paper in Texas, UT, University of Texas paper, student paper. And then I got to Houston, and there was an underground weekly called Space City News. So I kind of wormed my way in there and wrote a few record reviews, and then made myself the music editor because self-appointed, of course, no pay, but just all the LPs and jackets and concert tickets and T-shirts you could hustle.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning, really. And Space City News later dropped the news because somebody else had that title, so it was called Space City, and they just put out a book about 3 years ago about the history of the public page. We were one of the very first of what they call the underground papers, which today, of course, are just the basic weekly entertainment papers like Nashville Scene. So that was what got me started. And I wanted to be in the music business, but I didn't have the patience to learn to play guitar, and I didn't I didn't think I sang very well, so I just figured if I start writing about it all, then I'll just backstage passes and get to hang out, write them up, take pictures, and all that. So that's what I did, and that was my entry to showbiz when I came here in '73 to work for Cowboy Jack Clement.
Well, thank you for doing that, because, you know, that's a very important part of the music business for artists, is to have, you know, somebody that'll try to hype us up and write about it and get the buzz out, if you will. And I was trying to remember the first, I don't know, was it Purnell that introduced us? Because I know through the years you sure helped me distribute a lot of my music to overseas and other places that wouldn't have had my CDs to be able to buy and listen to had it not been for you. So you got started in that at some point along the way there too, right?
Yeah, and well, I had done that. I had sent out CDs for artists that I managed or that I was real interested in. But then in '96, I started actual Roots Music Exporters, which was set up to sell hard-to-find CDs and DVDs then to importers in Europe and Australia and a few in Asia. And I'm still doing it, even though streaming came along and ate about 90% of the business. But I still have customers in Australia and Europe. But now it's not a business, it's sort of a hobby. At peak, we were selling 6,000 CDs a month. And now, if I sell 300 in a month, it's cause for celebration. That's what streaming has done.
I know.
And yeah, you would know for sure how badly it's damaged your sales. You can hardly sell anything if you're not on the road now.
Right, I know it. Well, you sure had the opportunity to work with some greats. I know one of my favorites, well, certainly Steve Earle and Townes Van Zandt. I mean, the author of the wonderful Poncho and Lefty. Were you working when that song came out?
I was, actually. I managed Townes from 76 to 78. And that was during the time he wrote Poncho and Lefty. And we included that, and we put a songbook out in 1977 or 78 before anyone had covered any of his songs. And we had Poncho and Lefty in there. It was called For the Sake of the Song, the Townes Van Zandt songbook. My brother and I did it. And copies now are just fetching incredible prices. I mean, I sold a signed hardback 3 years ago for $1,800.
Wow.
And so it's a gorgeous book. It was, the idea of it was to have the actual sheet music on one side of the page and the other side just the lyrics. And then we had a comment from Townes about each song. And Townes and I picked, I think, 12 songs, and that was one of them. If I Needed You was another. I guess that's probably the second best known song of his.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually Don Rudge was responsible for the wonderful recording of that, and then Sue Lou was the first one to do Poncho and Lefty, wasn't she?
She was, indeed. If it weren't for her, I don't know if Willie and Merle would have ever heard it, but Emmy had that reputation and still does for having a very, very keen eye for songs and didn't care who wrote it. Just, you know, I had helped set up Townes to do a show, and Emmy and Paul Shirley, I guess, was her man then, and I don't know if he still is. Excuse me. But they came and heard him, and then it wasn't long after that she recorded Poncho and Lefty.
Oh, cool. Well, that had to be, in a lot of ways, so satisfying for you too. And that's one thing about this music business. It certainly has its highs and its lows. But boy, the highs can be pretty good and make the lows worth it, don't they?
Yeah, it's a struggle. You just get in there every day and push the wheel and hope it moves forward.
Some days it does, some days it doesn't, but when it does, it's definitely rewarding.
Yeah, it's And now I've got so many projects going, it's just really almost overwhelming.
Well, I was just about to ask you if you're going to slow it down at all, and I guess you just answered that question.
No, well, I've worked for myself out of the house since '87, and don't know what else to do. I don't play golf, and TV bores the hell out of me, so I just keep going, and now there's a whole lot of new things happening. The projects that I've either started recently or one, a Lomax film project, which actually started the first attempt to make a Lomax film was in 1940. And Bing Crosby and Josh White were going to play my granddad in Leadbelly. But then the war happened, of course, and that put that to an end. And since then, there's been at least a dozen filmmakers start up to try to do it and then never do it. But now we've got a guy that looks like he's going to be the one that will actually make the movie, which is going to basically show the world the fact that here's one family that for 149 years and 5 generations has steadily worked to find and promote and preserve American literary books and so forth. And the story is generally not known. People know about Allen, and some know about my granddad, starting the whole thing off right down to the word cowboy song in 1876 when he was 9 years old. And a few people might know about Bess Lomax, who worked for 15 years for the National Endowment for the Arts in charge of the folk music grant program. Also is the co-writer of MTA, the Kingston Trio, had a big hit with that. And she founded with some other people the American Folklife Festival, which is run in Washington every year, July 4th weekend. It's still going. It was started in 1967. And my father, who was the dean of Texas folk singers, and my brother who started doing this, and so on and so on. It's just this long, unbroken chain. And no one knows the story in its entirety, and it hasn't really been presented as one piece rather than many different pieces, which, we have Wikipedia entries, and there's a whole lot of information at the Association for Cultural Equity website. But when I started performing and doing my shows, that was the basis for it, was to try to show the breadth and the depth of what this one family has uncovered. And now, if it weren't for them, there might not be a Home on the Range. There might not be a Get Along Little Dope. There might never have been a Beatles, because the Beatles started as a skiffle band singing Rock Island Line, which, of course, grandfather recorded Leadbelly singing in the 30s. And George Harrison has even said, without Leadbelly, no Lonnie Donegan, no Beatles. Of course, Lonnie had this big giant hit in England with Rock Island Line, which he then claimed he wrote. And so Alan had to do some things to keep him from stealing all the Leadbelly stuff.
Wow. Well, that is really something. That is quite a story. You must be pretty excited about that coming out.
Well, we still have to do it. But the problem has been finding a filmmaker who's vision would align with what myself and Alan's daughter, Dr. Anna Lomax Wood, felt could be the thesis of the thing. And for one reason or another, Anna did it for a long time, and she never got connected with anyone that went anywhere. And then I started 3 years ago trying to get one made, and only then I've had 4 strikeouts, and now we've got this fella that I think may be able to actually pull it off. I met this guy at the Americana conference back in September because he was here in town because the film festival was going on. I had a movie made in the festival. And he came up. It wasn't a panel. It was one of those day events, but I just did my show, which consists of me singing and showing images and telling stories about family. And he came up afterward, and then I went and saw his movie, and we sort of started from there. It turned out he had done a heap of research, so he knew most of the whole story with the family. And he's Canadian, which means that there are funding sources that are probably easier to tap into than here now, considering we may not have any arts or music in the White House for some time.
Yeah, the White House is pretty much cutting budgets on everything, aren't they?
Oh yeah, now they're gonna mess with the post office, even though that's against the law, but they don't seem to care about laws down there anymore. But at any rate, this fellow made a movie about a woman who very famous and then vanished in 40 years, and she was a soul singer, a trans black soul singer, and she was headlining shows with Little Richard opening for her. All of the great black artists that came to Nashville and played the New Era Club, she was the headliner, and they opened for her, and then vanished. And so he made this movie which explains what happened. And even though he never saw her perform or met her in person.
Wow.
Well, you kind of have your head or your hat in many different baskets.
Yeah.
Distribution, movies, management. You kind of done a little bit of everything.
Yeah, just kind of danced around. The management never really made me any money, but the export really did, because Garth, in 2006, Garth made that deal with Walmart when they were for this distribution point for his box sets and all of that. And
I remember that.
Before that deal was over, he had 13 different titles available. So I would just go buy them wholesale. I mean, I'd buy them retail and wholesale them all over the world. And so far, we've probably sold, I think we just passed 98,000 stuff that we've shipped all over the world. And this is pieces, meaning a box set now for one, not 7 or 8.
Yeah. I remember when you came out with those box sets back in like the late 90s. Loved them.
Still going.
Because you got like many of his CDs. You might even have had a DVD in it and a poster. It was a really good marketing tactic, for sure.
It's about 4,000. I mean, it started with Walmart. Then he put something at Target, then something at Best Buy, and eventually the deal would be they would buy X amount up front and then give him all this money, and he then able to count, oh, well, I sold $1 million to Walmart, that counts for $7 million, but because there were 7 CDs in there.
Right.
And it was quite a racket there, and after a while, he pretty much wore out all the standard retailers. The last one came out on Ask Pro Shops, and then he had one 2 or 3 months ago tied in with his appearances in Vegas at Caesar's Palace called 777. And I don't know how much they paid or what they got, but it's the same kind of deal where they buy X amount up front. Whether they could sell it or not. Bass Pro Shop started out selling it at $40. Now they're selling it at $6.
Wow.
So I don't know. I think it's warmed out.
Well, I think that goes back to what you were saying a little bit ago. You know, I'm still a nostalgic person. I like having my DVDs. I like having my CD collection. But the new age, the new genre, the new lifestyle that people are doing, it's all streaming. They don't care if they own it. They have it on their phone. That's all they really care about.
Yeah. And they don't care who wrote the song or who played the guitar break or anything.
Or the story behind the song, or...
nothing. Yeah, because when I put mine up, it'll have a full notebook. I've got 9 songs up on Spotify and all those places now. So, but I'm not making any money on it, but what the hell, it's not.
Yeah.
This is not money, it's about awakening people to a remarkable American family that's done amazing things in saving music that might not have ever been saved.
Yeah, I think I got a payout the other day on Amazon for my music and books, and I think the payout was like 10 cents. So it reminds me of, okay, now I get a ramen noodle, maybe.
Yeah, and vinyl has now gone ridiculous prices for the same album that you bought 30 years ago for $4.98 is now $28 or something.
Yeah, but I'm glad to see it coming back. You know, I mean, as an artist myself, I really hate that people are missing out on being able to look at the picture, flip through the little, insert in the CD, and like you said, see who wrote the songs, see what musicians were there, who produced. You know, all that is really quite a deal to try to research the song. So much more time it would take to do that way, just be able to flip through your little CD case. So it's kind of sad. I hope sometime they'll figure out a way to, make that kind of thing available. And I guess right now it's still done on the vinyl jackets, or covers. So you can watch it and see it there. But
yeah, the original, when the vinyl came back, they were undersupplied with places that would make LP. But now they've caught up with vinyl pressing. Because when I had an album of my dad's, a posthumous album I did in 2017, and they said you had to do 1,000 minimum albums. And when I got ready to do another one last year, they said, "Oh, we'll do 100, we'll do 50, whatever you need." Because United Record Pressing here has got something like 50 or so presses going, and they've eaten up all the backlog. So now it's sort of a dog-eat-dog out there. And in fact, one place here we just went out of business.
well, it continues to change this whole world day by day. It's good that we have people that are keeping some of the traditions alive, John, and I thank you for that. I'm trying to keep people aware of where some of the music came from and where that's what Hudson and I are trying to do too, is still put some of the stories from the 90s, whether it be the artists or folks like you that was out there getting the music available all over the world for people to hear or whatever, because it's just, otherwise, if we don't do it, I don't know who is going to do it.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of, I feel like it's kind of my mission, growing up in this family and hearing the Houston Folklore Society started in our living room in 1951, and it's still going. It's the Houston Folklore and Music Society now, but the whole thing is still going on, and that was where I first heard a lot of these songs that I sing in my shows. And also, my dad had a couple of albums on Folkway from 56 and 62. So I could listen to those and get the phrasing and my time off of them. I don't have as good a voice as my dad, but it's folk music, so I figure I can get away with it. I tell people there will be moments during my performance where I will actually be in key, on pitch, and on time, and to savor those moments could happen.
That's great.
Because I'm not trained. I mean, I started performing 3 years ago. I just walked out there at Ed Harmon's house concert, did a show, and realized that I could do this. That I didn't sing all that great, but it wasn't terrible. Nobody was holding their hands over their ears and throwing rock fruit or anything. And, at a house concert, when you're no more than 20 feet from the other person, you can tell right away if they're engaged or not. And
You bet.
So I just decided to launch a career as a performer, and I did the shows a cappella and show these images and tell stories. But the album that I did, American Folk Song, is with musicians. Really good one, Richard Bennett, Sean Tam, Jim Hoke, and some others. And we cut it at Clemens Studio, the first place I worked over there on Belmont. The one he had in his the top of his house, not the ones down there. He had 2 studios down there on Belmont. This is the one in his home, further out Belmont on the other side of the street. Well, not here he had 7 studios, but now it's got the one, and his cousin has renovated it and made it into a really nice studio. So it was great to be back there in the building where I started working in Nashville in 52 years ago.
How neat is that? Yeah, that's got some stories behind that.
That was fun too.
Well, John, I know that it's been, a learning experience, some of this for Hudson, and certainly for me. I've known you for the longest time, but I didn't know some of these things that you've shared with us today, and I certainly know that our listeners are going to enjoy that and be kind of tuning in, trying to look for that. Now that will be coming out like hopefully in a year or so, maybe that DVD that you were talking about, or what kind of time frame do you think we're looking at for that?
Oh, it's going to be a while because we've just now got the concept, the way that the story will be told is now, they used to call them treatments, but now they call it a deck where what you use to pitch to get money. And it tells the story that you're going to tell and gives some examples, tells the filmmaker's bio and so forth. And so we're at that stage now, and what we need is money to start out. And so we'll find out pretty soon if we're able to raise the funds. And see what. So it's going to be a while. And meanwhile, though, my cousin is starting a record label called Folk Archive, and it will have some of the stuff that her father found, that Alan found, and we're going to have some albums released pretty soon on our family label. So
that's pretty exciting.
And also, I'm trying to convince the Dan Rogers at the Opry that he needs to put me on stage during their 100th year anniversary celebration, since we're celebrating our 149th year. And also, Uncle Alan and Eleanor Roosevelt put together a program for the King and Queen of England, which was the first time country music was ever performed in the White House. That was in 1939.
Wow.
So it's possible. One thing I'm pitching the Opry on is to recreate the program with contemporary singers, because they cover country and bluegrass and folk and spirituals and even square dancing.
How neat is that?
Yeah, in that program from 39, and my uncle wrote it, and Eleanor convinced Franklin that it ought to be a good thing. It turned out Franklin Roosevelt said Home on the Range was one of his favorite songs, and Teddy Roosevelt wrote the foreword to grandfather's first book, Cowboy Songs and Other Frontier Ballads, which came out in 1910. So maybe I'll get to go out and sing on the Opry, and I'm also trying to give the Americana Music Association, give the family some sort of lifetime achievement award, since they've never given us anything, and we were Americana before there was such a thing.
It doesn't sound like you've let many grass grow under your feet, and that's good to hear. I'm glad that you're out there working hard to get some of this knowledge out there for people to know about. we just appreciate you so much joining us today to share some of these stories, don't we, Hudson?
Absolutely. And John, unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time, but the interview was amazing. I truly thank you so much for coming on. You have so many different projects going on, so many different things that you're busy in, and so you taking out this little bit of time today is greatly appreciated.
Well, I really appreciate your helping to spread the word. That's great.
Absolutely. Well, John, I hope you have a great afternoon, and again, we'll have to bring you back on. And we thank you again so much for your time.
All right.
When we can get some of these updates after a while, we'll be checking in on you, John.
Okay, great. I still have your email, Johnny. I'll send you something once we get something going.
Please do.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni. We hope you enjoyed this glimpse into the heart of these stories. If you loved this episode, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to connect with us on our website, storiesroundthetable with hudsonandjoni.com. We'll see you next week, ready to share another story.